Hi, I'm Kristen Ward, and welcome to episode 3 of Maquette Vallant's Summer of Stories. Special thanks this week goes out to our sponsor, Karen M. If you enjoy the show and would like to also help sponsor the project, you can go to paypal.me/kwardStorydance to donate. While I usually specialize in folk tales, this week's episode takes me a little bit out of my comfort zone with both a personal story and a brand new story that I wrote just for this episode. I call it SmallTime Superhero. There is a stigma of adulthood that as soon as you sign your first IRS form, you get struck with an immediate and irrevocable case of amnesia of what it was like to be a child. I am happy to report that in my case, this has not been true. In fact, there are moments of my childhood that I not only remember vividly, but that have become a core part of who I am. One of my earliest memories left me with a lifetime understanding of how important small things can be, especially to a child. It was my 6th birthday, and when I got to kindergarten, my teacher gave me a crown to wear. It was simple yellow construction paper with the number 6 meticulously printed on it in blue magic marker. I got to decorate it myself with glittery star stickers and crayon, and I was so proud. I wore it all day at school and couldn't wait to go home and show my family. The late November wind can be very cruel, both to sailors and to small children. As I stepped outside with my head held high, looking for the big yellow bus with the number that corresponded to the one pinned to my dress, a huge gust of wind came up and blew my precious crown off of my head, down the sidewalk, and straight under one of the buses. I ran after it as fast as my little legs could carry me, but I was caught by a teacher just as the bus pulled away, tearing my beautiful crown and pressing it into a puddle on the asphalt. Looking back with my practical adult brain, I am grateful that I did not get hit by a bus at the age of 6. But at the time, I was devastated. My first big heartbreak of my young life, and I sobbed all the way home. 7 years later, in middle school, another seemingly small moment shaped my life. I was a shy and awkward 13, and often felt invisible to those around me. The window of time between classes was very short, and there was one teacher who was always taking me to task for being late. One day, after I'd racked up a few warnings and was teetering on another detention, I raced up the stairs from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor and tripped. I watched in horror as my backpack landed upside down and open on the steps, and the entire contents slid out. Books, folders, papers, pencils littered the stairwell, and classmates had to navigate carefully around it all as they too hurried to their destinations. Defeated, embarrassed, and sore, I slowly collected my things and wrangled them back into my backpack. Not a single person stopped to help or to ask if I was okay. I vowed right then and there, from that day forward, no matter how busy I am, I would be the kind of person who would stop. And for the most part, whenever I can safely do so, I have managed to live up to that promise. Fast forward to spring 2020, and it feels like the whole world has spilled its backpack. What starts off as a flu-like illness 8,000 miles away quickly snowballs into a global pandemic. Information wildly fluctuates with each news report, while numbers steadily climb. America shuts its doors. Events are canceled, millions lose their jobs, and millions more try to carve out home office spaces while juggling taking care of families, stocking up on needs, and processing collective grief and uncertainty. Stores are stripped of paper products, food bank lines of vehicles stretch for miles, and everything I've come to depend on as a live performer and theater artist becomes one giant question mark. And so I turned to the one thing that I can always count on to make me feel better in times of uncertainty. I looked for a way to help. Scientists have found that helping others releases stress-fighting brain chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. But for me, helping gives me perspective, an understanding that I am one part of a larger community, gratitude and knowing that no matter how low I feel, there will always be something I can give someone with less. Even if all that is time, and hope, in knowing that if I am helping in my small ways, others are helping too. Grateful to have a car that allowed me a break from the shelter in place, I turned to 412 Food Rescue to volunteer. If you're not from Pittsburgh or haven't heard of this organization before, 412 Food Rescue is an app-based program that prevents perfectly good food from being thrown away by redirecting it to communities in need. As someone who grew up with parents constantly reminding me never to waste food because there were places where people went hungry, supporting this organization was a no-brainer for me since the first time I heard of it in 2018. One of their taglines is "Food Rescue Hero." And because of this, and because I'm an adult who has not forgotten how to be childlike, I like to wear a cape on my missions, much to the delight of some of the food rescue staff I've met, who once sent me a card that read, "Not all heroes wear capes, but sometimes they do." The card hangs on my refrigerator and still gives me a smile every time I see it. To help with the surge in need while complying with stay-at-home orders, 412 Food Rescue partnered with our local food bank to launch no-contact home deliveries of emergency food boxes. Volunteering for a couple of these runs offered me a rewarding way to get out of my house and discover parts of Pittsburgh that I might otherwise overlook. On one of these runs, I got lost. The Pittsburgh trifecta of one-way streets, five-way intersections, and missing signs flummoxed my GPS as I toured around and around the same little neighborhood. Finally, I turned down a little narrow street lined with brick houses. It was a hot day, and in the front yard of one of the houses, a group of kids splashed in a plastic swimming pool. One 5- or 6-year-old boy stood on the sidewalk, a grown-up holding him back from the street. And I slowed, as I always do when I see a kid near the road. Then I saw it. Teased by the wind, a big yellow, white, and blue beach ball wavered its way down the center of the street, oblivious to traffic or the child's pleas to retrieve it. I thought of my yellow crown and the promise I had made on that middle school stair, and I stopped. I put my flashers on, got out, and captured the escaped ball. As I brought it over to the sidewalk, I heard the children start to cheer. "It's a superhero! It's a superhero!" In my frustration with my GPS, I had forgotten what I was wearing. A blue cheer skirt, bright top, superhero mask that a friend had made me, and a red satin cape. I held out the ball, only vaguely aware that my mask hid my amazed grin. "Well, go get it then," said the grown-up, releasing his hold on the child who had lost his ball. The little boy ran up and thanked me excitedly as I batted the ball to him. "A superhero! She's a superhero! Did you see? Did you see?" The kids continued cheering as I walked back to my trusty SUV. And I remembered another childhood moment. Another crown, not of yellow construction paper, but of gold, emblazoned with a red star. I was 3 or 4 years old, racing through my backyard in my Wonder Woman underoos, filled with joy and hope because Linda Carter, the first live Wonder Woman, had shown me that dark hair is beautiful and that a true princess can not only save herself, but save the world as well. That same hope and joy welled up inside of me as I buckled my seatbelt and put the car back into drive. My confused GPS had taken me exactly where I needed to be. And while I may not have saved the world that day, maybe, just maybe, I created a core moment that one kid would remember and grow up to be a superhero for small things, too. Cherished Pittsburgh neighbor and TV host Fred Rogers once said, "There are 3 ways to ultimate success. The first way is to be kind. The second way is to be kind. The third way is to be kind." With everything going on in the world today, from disease to injustice, it's even more important to be kind to others than ever, and to be kind to ourselves. So your challenge for this week is to find a way to be kind to just one person. Write about it in the comments section below. To be creative and have some fun, you can also draw yourself as a small-time superhero in the Kindness League. What would your costume look like? What small things could you rescue? You can share your drawing on Facebook or Instagram with #MVStoryDance. I would love to see your drawings. I suppose if I'm asking you to show your drawings, it's only fair if you see mine. I worked on this a little bit earlier this week, but as you can see, I am not anywhere near a professional visual artist. And so I called up my friend Marcel Walker, who is a professional artist as well as comics enthusiast, to see if he had any advice. Hi, Marcel.
Hi, Kristen. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how to find you?
Oh my, yes. So, I am a graphic prose artist, so I create what most people refer to as comic books and related stories. I write and draw and all sorts of parts of color and letter and edit. And what else do I do? I work at the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh on our comic book that we produce called Hutzpah, Superheroes of the Holocaust. We've been working on this series for several years. Yay! And it's really the core thing that I'm working on right now. But I also do freelance artwork and freelance writing, so I'm involved in a lot of different projects. Oh, and where can you find me? You can find me everywhere. Sometimes I think if you just open up a browser and type in Marcel Walker, you'll find me. But you can always find me through the Holocaust Center, and you can find me via my website, marcelwalker.com. I'm also the board president of the Toonseum, and you can find me through there at toonseum.org. So the Toonseum started as the Museum of Comics and Cartoon Art here in Pittsburgh, and we're still doing all sorts of programming around the city.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I even have a T-shirt from the Pittsburgh Community Food Bank that you.
Yes, I worked with them a couple years ago and created their Veggie Heroes. Yeah, so you got there's Courageous Kale there front and center. She was very popular, so here she is again. Yay! Yes, those are some of my superheroes, the folks that work there at the food bank, because they're taking care of our community, and they stepped up here recently during the coronavirus sheltering, and they've been taking care of everybody. So they're definitely superheroes of the community.
So who is your favorite superhero, and how did they shape you in your life?
So anybody who knows me will tell you my favorite superhero has been from the beginning Superman. And there's so many ways that I could tell you that Superman has shaped who and what I am. Like, I think this could go on forever, but the easiest way to sum it all up is that Superman, he represents consistency to me. You know, consistency and reliability. And for all the powers that he has, he's the biggest, he's the strongest, he's the fastest, all those things. But to me, it's always been his inner qualities that truly define him as super. His strength of will to get the right things done, his sense of empathy, and his caring for others. Because when you're that powerful, you don't just automatically have to care for other people, but he always does. And, you know, that is the truest use of strength that I can think of. And his ability to see the big and small pictures at the same time. You know, he's got amazing powers, including all these vision powers, and I think that's of note. You know, having the power of supervision. He has telescopic vision and microscopic vision, meaning he can see the big picture and the small picture. And I think as human beings, we need to learn to see the big picture and the small picture, because he's talked about how when he's flying in space and he looks at Earth looks really beautiful from above, because he can see everything. He can see how we all go together and work together in ways that we can't here down on the ground. So, you know, he's pretty special. Plus the fact that, you know, he chooses to spend a lot of his time on the ground. You know, when he's Clark Kent, he doesn't have to be Clark Kent. He doesn't have to be walking around with everybody else, but he does that so he never forgets what it's supposed to be like, what most people are dealing with and going through, and what life is like for most people. So, you know, when he's in the clouds, he always knows what it's like to be on the ground.
That's great. I think that's something that we can all learn from.
Sure. Yeah, I hope so. I've always heard people say that, you know, they don't find Superman relatable, but I think he's the most relatable character there is, or one of them anyway. You know, he's somebody who's trying to do good with what he was given, and I think that's true of a lot of people out there. So, yeah.
The story I just told was about how I was able to help someone in a really small way. But with your work in Hutzpah, you help tell the stories of real life heroes who really risked their lives to help others in really big ways. Can you tell us about one of them?
Oh, sure. And there have been so many people we've profiled in Hutzpah that it's hard to just choose one. Whenever we work on any issue, it's hard to just choose to highlight the stories that we do, because every story is impressive and amazing, and just learning how to survive in harsh times, you know, that's heroic. But recently I've been working on stories, pardon the markups, this is the most recent volume of Hutzpah, volume 4, which should, by the time this is out there, should be available to folks. I'm sorry?
Sneak peek.
Yeah. So Hutzpah Volume 4, every issue is thematic. This features women's stories. And one of our heroes in this issue, Nor Inayat Khan, tiny picture right there. Nor was also known as Nora Baker. She was a hero. She became the first British spy sent behind enemy lines during World War II. And first female British spy sent behind enemy lines during World War II, and that's notable. She was Sufi, meaning her family practiced Sufism, a sect of the Muslim religion, and it's Muslim mysticism. So it's very arts related, and I know I'm not doing it justice by this explanation, but it's just it's a mystical way of interpreting the universe and looking at the universe as mystery. So it was very arts related upbringing. It was centered around arts and culture, and she danced, she wrote, she played music, she played harp, she played piano, she was a writer, she wrote poetry, she wrote prose, she wrote a book of tales called the Jataka Tales. This is a background that was not commonly had by anybody who who did what she ultimately did, which is she entered the Women's Auxiliary Forces and was then chosen for a group called the Special Operations Executive, and she was chosen for her radio transmission skills. She trained in that, and she was, by all accounts, really an outstanding operative. Now, she took a lot of flack for not being, as her supervisors at the time saw, fitted to the work. But a lot of that was unfair. A lot of her training was substandard, and I think there were elements of prejudice involved there as well. But she was chosen to go into the field, and when she arrived, within just a few days of her arrival, she was the only operative there in France that was able to send transmissions from France to England. So she was the only link that field agents had to England. The average time spent, or the average lifespan, they called it, of an operative behind enemy lines at that time, during Nazi occupation of France, was 6 weeks. So it was dangerous work, and she knew that going in. She lasted without any immediate backup, without any other operatives, for 4 months on her own. So she did the work of over 10 operatives by herself for 4 months. So her unique background, which a lot of people didn't think served her well for what she was getting into, actually served her exceptionally well, because she was able to hold up so readily under such dire conditions. I think that's a tremendous lesson for most of us to learn. I think most of us at some point or other in our lives have felt like we are ill-suited to do the things that we are called upon to do. We're not suited to, do things at work, do things with our families, do things with our communities. And that last one is really important, because we've got so much going on in our communities right now. It can be very easy to feel overwhelmed and just not suited to the tasks that are in front of us. But we still kind of have to answer the call to heroism. Bravery is the key that unlocks everything that's exceptional about all of us. And she answered that call, and the things that made her so unique were the things that made her perfectly suited to what she ultimately did. So many of the subjects in Hood's Pal, male and female, have done extraordinary things, and when you look at them, it's hard to imagine what would you do in circumstances that they found themselves in. But they were people just like you and me and everybody we encounter, and they just answered that call, and they were able to find that key and unlock their potential with their bravery. And so we call them upstanders, because they're the opposite of bystanders. They choose.
I love that.
Yeah, they choose to go in and make a difference and use their unique qualities to change the world for the better. So I know we can all do that.
That's great. And I'll post the link to find Hood's Pal down in the comments as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
So our challenge this week was to draw ourselves as superheroes. So I tried, but it only went so well. I mean, it definitely doesn't look like what you do. So can you give us some advice or tips for those of us who, aren't professional artists like you?
So first of all, I just want to say that I think that's a great demonstration of artistic skill. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. The best advice I can give anybody is just to do it. Just to do what you just to apply yourself to your art. Whether it's visual art or it's another discipline, whether it's music, whether it's dance, whatever that is, that talent that you want to pursue, just pursue it. In terms of if you want to draw, the best thing I can tell you, and it sometimes sounds like a shortcut or a cheat to answer this, but just draw. Get some paper, get a pencil or some pens or some crayons, and just draw. If you want to draw people, and you want them to look, a certain way, I always recommend drawing from life. Look at the world around you, look at people right in front of you, sit outside on your front stoop, go to a park, just look at people and just draw. You would be surprised how transformative it can be, and you'll be surprised at what you'll see in your art. I always have people say to me, I can't even draw a stick figure. That's the main thing they say. The thing is, yes, you can. Yes, every single person can. I used to work as an arts instructor. I still sometimes do it. And it's not as hard as people think. My good friend Lauren, she took one of my workshops once, and she was one of the I can't draw a stick figure people. But we did that, and not only did she figure it out, but she actually has applied it to drawing animals, especially dogs. And now she just has a whole series of dog illustrations and drawings that she does, and they're beautiful. And she gets commissions to do them all the time, and they're really, really great. She always credits me with opening that up for her, but I credit herself. Although we all do need some degrees of inspiration to just get started. My dad drew, and I saw that it could be done, and I wanted to do it, and then I did it. And so, look for somebody who inspires you. I guess that's the other part of it. Look for somebody who inspires you. Look for how they do what they do. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because usually people who are really good at what they do, they don't mind when you ask them questions, as long as you're not all up in their business. And then just practice like you wouldn't believe, and before you know it, you'll be way better than you ever thought you could be. I still love your drawing.
Well, thank you, Marcel.
Thank you for inviting me here, Kristen. I'm glad I got a chance to talk with you here.
And thank you for watching. If you enjoy the show, please share, subscribe, or like below. You can also become a sponsor by going to paypal.me/KWardStoryDance. I'll see you next week for episode 4. In the meantime, catch up on missed episodes right here.